So what are the differences between powerlifting, strength training, and normal strength training? I mean, the main difference is simply that powerlifting is a sport with three specific events: the deadlift, the squat, and the bench, with their own set of rules. Uh, now like the bench press, it has to touch your chest. You have to pause on your chest. The squat, you have to go down to the point where the hip joint is just slightly lower than the knee joint, and on and on. So it's very, very specific. Now, normal strength training, at least on my view, is more a matter of using exercise as a tool to get stronger overall. So now we're not talking about very specific lifts. We're just talking about like a multitude of great compound movements that you can use to get stronger overall across the board. In terms of strength qualities or sets and reps and training parameters, I mean, it can look quite the same. But to me, the main difference really is in terms of the focus on more exercises for regular strength and the focus on three exercises for powerlifting. So that to me is really the big difference. So top three tips for training hockey players. I say this all the time, like strength is the mother of all qualities. So for hockey, at first, I really want to put the focus on increasing general strength. I think a lot of hockey players that focus solely on playing hockey, they just lack general overall strength. So improving this to a certain level will improve their speed and on and on. So that to me would be the first priority. Now, more specifically, second tip, it would be to focus on strengthening the lower back. I think the lower back is a big issue with hockey players. So if you focus on strengthening these muscles, which especially if we're talking about more like isolated hip extension movements, you want to make sure that you strengthen every part of the strength curve, from the bottom range with exercises like good mornings, to the mid range with incline back extension, to the top range like reverse hyper. So you have a fully developed posterior chain and you're really working that lower back to its maximum potential. Finally, the one thing that I think we need to make sure as coaches that we don't omit with hockey players is to train the adductors. But because like the adductors are recruited so much when skating, and skating has a certain stride velocity and a certain power component to it, I like to use more like sled exercises, like sideways sled drags and stuff like that, to work the adductors than simply going on a adductor machine, for example. Like this, to me, the modes of contractions and the velocities of that machine don't correlate as much with the performance of hockey than doing like sled work at higher speed and higher velocities, which to me are going to carry over more to your competitive season than everything else. So to me, these would be my top three tips. So overall strength, focusing on lower back, number two, and working the adductors with implements that facilitate velocities. Why is it that I don't do more than 6 reps on front squats and deadlift? The front squat, it's a pretty well-known fact. The problem is, assuming you're using a 4-0x0 tempo, if you go above 6 reps, the time under tension gets so long that the muscles of the upper back that help stabilize the front rack position don't have the strength and endurance to maintain proper position. So at that point, the elbow starts dropping, the upper back starts rounding. Now you're more at risk of dropping the barbell forward. You're putting yourself more at risk of injury. So the risk reward by going 6 reps is just not there. There's too much technical breakdown. With the deadlift, it's a little bit different. What happens with the deadlift, again, assuming you're doing a 4-1x0 tempo, and I say 4-1x0 because to me, a deadlift, since the purpose is to be able to lift the weight off of the ground from a dead stop, I always use the 1 and the tempo to re-emphasize to the client that they need to pause and reset on the ground before the pull. The deadlift uses every muscle possible to be able to deadlift. And if you combine that, the fact that every muscle is working with that tempo and lifting the weight off of a dead stop every time, what happens is each rep is way more challenging than a normal rep where there's more elastic components to it. So because of that, you almost have to look at it like your 6 rep is closer to a 10 or a 12 RM in terms of intensity. So if you were to do like 12 reps on deadlift, following that tempo prescription, the actuality is your load would probably closer to 50% of 1 RM, where now we know that this is too light of an intensity to create the training response you're looking for. If you were to test it, a lot of you guys would probably, at 70% of 1 RM, which is that minimum threshold of intensity, you'd probably be doing like 6 or maybe 7 reps, 8 at the maximum. So you can see that the average rep for the deadlift for any given intensity will always be lower. So this is why I just feel that beyond 6, you're not getting any benefits. Technically, it becomes quite hard as well to maintain proper back position. The back will start to round. So yeah, this is why I set it up at 6. And in reality, these 2 lifts, my average rep is about 3. So what's my favorite exercise or method to improve the bench press? So to me, it's the bench press. I feel that first and foremost, you need a technical mastery on the bench press in order to truly improve it. There's so much about the bench press technique that so few people realize. Like the ability to tighten up the upper back, the ability to drive with your legs, the ability to grab the floor with your feet, to activate the hamstring and the glutes, to stabilize the spine and the hips and everything. So once you've worked on the technical aspects of the bench press, then my favorite method would be the inertia technique. I love doing inertia bench press from the bottom, because most people on bench, not everybody, but a lot of people on bench, they struggle from the chest up. Okay, it's those first 6 inches from the chest up that is the biggest weak link on most people, which makes sense since the bench press is an ascending strength curve movement and it's harder in the bottom and easier as you keep going up. So by doing inertia method with the bottom range, you set up the side pins on the power rack, like half an inch, like 1 centimeter above your chest. And this is your starting point. Now, why is it so good? It's because now you have no elastic energy because you're coming right off of the pins in the bottom. So now it forces you to truly apply force from that range of motion without the help of elastic energy. So to me, that's a very good plateau buster for bench press. And obviously, there's more methods. A lot of isometric methods I like functional isometric from the bottom range and stuff like that. But that inertia technique, coming off the pins, exploding up, back down to the pins, pause on the pins for 2 seconds, maintain tension, go back up. It's a very good technique method to use for that. What are my thoughts on the 6-12-25 method? I like it. It's a tricep. It's good for hypertrophy. You can apply it to a fat loss phase as well. So what it is you do A1, A2, A3 for a specific muscle group. So let's say chest, chest, chest. And the first exercise you do 6 reps with like a 4-0-1-0 tempo. Then you do the A2, you would do a chest exercise for 12 reps with a 3-0-1-0 tempo. And then finally you finish last exercise for chest, 25 reps, 2-0-1-0 tempo. So this is a 6-12-25 for those who didn't know. And again, it's just a tricep, but the thing that's interesting about it is because the reps are so wide across the spectrum of repetitions that you're still stimulating high threshold motor units with your A1 exercise of 6 reps. And then as it progresses, you're doing higher and higher and higher reps, to really spread the stimulus across all fibers. So that's the advantage of that method. The time under tension will be long enough to produce a decent amount of lactate, which is why you could use this for a fat loss phase as well. So it's a good method. What's my favorite way to increase neck extensor strength? Well, I like a progression where you're using different modes of contraction. So what I like to do at first, the first phase, I like to work the neck extensor isometrically. So like a neck support on ball for a 1018 tempo, that'd be great. So you work isometrically. Then I move on to a concentric type contraction. I like using the head harness with a low pulley, and then you would go for like 20 reps with a 2010 tempo. Then I like to follow with an eccentric contraction. So you get the head harness again. You attach the pulley, a mid pulley, to the top part of the head harness right on your forehead. And now, with the help of your arms and your entire body, you move back, and then you let the pulley bring you down eccentrically for 6 to 8 seconds. And then finally, you move to a more dynamic neck extension exercise with a band, and then you take the advantage of the elastic component of the band to create elastic energy to have a more forceful concentric contraction. So this is a progression that I like to use with athletes where the neck extensors are a dominant part of the sport, like football players, for example. I love doing this. It's a great progression that works really well with a wide, broad spectrum of athletes. What's my favorite way to increase calf size for people who lag calf development? First of all, I think frequency becomes an important factor. Calf, because it's such a small muscle, you can afford to train it like 4 times a week if you wanted to. But in my experience, if you do like 2 sessions a week that are dedicated to improving calf size, you'll get good benefits. So in terms of methodologies, one method that I really, really like that worked wonders for me in the past is doing calf extension in the leg press, where you put the back seat to its highest elevation, so that when you're in the leg press, you feel like a stretch behind your knee joint, like you're feeling your hamstring. So that creates a pre-stretch on the gastroc, and then you do 10 sets of 10 reps with 10 seconds rest in between with a 1010 tempo. Now you're driving up so much volume in a pre-stretched position. I guarantee you, like the next day you're going to be sore. Like most people who've never done that, they might be sore for up to 5 days. But this could be one workout, and then the other workout, I would focus on soleus. I would bring up the gastroc again and some anterior tibialis to make sure the entire calf structure is being worked. And this workout can be more of a tri-set structure, like 5 sets of a A1, A2, A3, where you start with the seated calf raise, then the anterior tib, then the gastroc. Do this for like a month. You'll see a very marked difference in improvements in calf hypertrophy.